Okay, here we go. Strap on your seatbelts. Hi, everybody. Pat, I'm very glad to see you're here. Hi. Hi, Hosanna. Oh, it's so good to see my friends. Christine, hi. Nazi, Lori, Juliana. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, or Jean, rather, I'm sorry. Elizabeth Poole is here. And Elisa, too. That's so nice. Hi, Elisa. And Celine. Rizza. Yeah. How you doing, man? Vanessa, I see you're back. It's great to see you. Hey there. Barbara. All right. I love it. Diane, it's so nice to see your glasses so we can see your face. Move your camera. And Caroline Tosh, my good old friend from the UK is here. This is so great. And Regina, one of our senior practitioners. Bravissimo. I love that you're here, Regina. That's great. I love this. This is like a party when we're all together, you know? When we get together. Hey, Jean, there you are. All right. Barbara, you're walking in the woods somewhere. All right. And somebody named John. I don't know your last name, but welcome. It's good to see you. All right. And Jen Wen. Jing Wen, I guess, with the beautiful astrology thing.
Yes,
Huh.
thank you.
Is that, did I say your name right? Jing Wen?
Perfect, perfect.
Super. Okay. So I've got so much to share with you guys. I can hardly wait for questions. I'm just at the edge of my seat. I look forward to this class all month long. I swear I would do this every day if I could. This is so fun. So I hope you guys have been surviving the ups and downs of the strangeness of our world. It is bizarre and weird, and we're buckling our seatbelts and hanging on. And I have one thing to say to people: keep holding the light. Keep holding the light and hold that lantern high. That's what we have to do as we go through this difficult period on our planet. Because it's not just the US, guys. Everywhere is in struggle. So we are the light, we are the lamp holders. So we gotta keep holding that light. That's what I'm committed to doing, and I hope you'll join me in that in that effort. All right. So I'm real proud of a lot of you. You've been doing wonderful things in the world. And I just want to say, Regina Schulman, come back on the camera, Regina. Regina Schulman, one of our very early practitioners. Regina has been a leader in the Lewistown mass shooting. Do you guys remember that? It was in Lewiston, Maine, I think. And Regina was indoctrinated into that experience by being there at the Boston Marathon shooting, where she gave first aid and helped people. And then she found out about the Lewiston one. Of course, everybody knew about that. And Regina was then pressed into service. And she has gone up there for the last year helping those folks. She lives in Massachusetts, but she's been driving to Maine to help folks and bringing sacred anatomy to the world in that way, because she shows up like a big dog. I really was so proud of Regina. She spoke at the commemoration, the year anniversary of the shooting, and she's helped people come back from the brink. Say a little bit about it, Regina, because it's amazing to see your work in the world. We're so proud of you.
Oh, thanks, Desda. Hi, everybody. I was just chewing. That's why I put my camera off. Having some lunch here in Massachusetts on the East Coast. Yeah, occasionally I'll be driving to Maine. It's a couple-hour drive each way. And I'll call Desda and just thank her repeatedly for the work that I've learned in sacred anatomy, learning how to work and keep myself sane and safe energetically. working from the edge of my soul layer, having just the basic self-care practices like, severing entanglements and expanding the template, just our very basic tools that I think are being taught now in MedBag have enabled me to work with some really intense pain. So I work with the Lewiston community now for a year. I work with the survivors, the people that were at the shooting. Some folks still have bullets in their bodies. They're still undergoing surgeries from being wounded. Many have lost loved ones. And so just to be able to hold that space from the edge of the soul layer has been deeply valuable just in and of itself. Just showing up and holding that sacred space for people to move through their pain. And what I've noticed is the healing, right? That just invites the healing to happen. So thanks, Desda. It's just an honor to be here. I've been trying to the problem is on Fridays, I usually work, but I moved my schedule around. So I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm delighted you're here, sweetheart. I really, truly am. And I'm really grateful that you call me when you do, because I love to hear from you. And I just want to welcome a couple more people who've just come in. I see Chenson. Hi, sweetie. And Steve Glantz, who was an early adapter. He came to our very early seminars I did live here in Marin County. He came to them at the Unity Church. And I think you might have even come to a few talks at my house, when I was just starting to share publicly, and Steve is just a thoughtful, wonderful guy. So it's great to see you here. And Taiko, I see you're, and Elena. Just, it's just so great to have you all here. Monica, all right, we've got quite the crew. We ready for some questions? Hi, Kirsten. Hey, all right. Let's go. I do want to say one word to Caroline Tosh. Caroline Tosh is an extraordinary osteopath. She's in the UK and she was a UK trained osteopath, but she has not stopped there. She has continued to educate herself to the nth degree. And Caroline Tosh is a really dear friend of mine, someone I care about very much. And here she is from the UK, signing in the middle of the night, I guess. I don't know, late at night after dinner. And I hope you've got some interesting shares. Caroline, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So let's get going. Hey, Ruth, good to see you. I can't take any more time saying hello. I don't want to waste any more time yapping. Let's hear some questions. Who's got a question? You can either raise your hand, you can put it in the chat. What do we got in the chat? From Ridza, a guy who's always got good questions. I love it. I have often seen in various practices to bring presence in the hara or the lower dantian and empty the mind. I feel in the edge practice there is no such emphasis, but rather a gradual expansion of presence to a wider perception of ourselves from inner body to outer sacred anatomy. What can we say about this difference if it is correct? Wow. Ridza, I love the way you put that. That's beautifully said. So the question is, what's the difference? So when we do martial arts, there's this landing, there's this placing of presence, and it is in the gut. So the hara, the dantian. Now in sacred anatomy, we call that area the pelvic bowl. We also call it the dantian because there's the dantian chakra located in that area. But the truth of the matter is the presence needs to be anchored completely into the entire body. It actually cannot be anchored only in one place. So that's why when I teach the edge practice, or when you learn the edge practice, I love it. Hi, Adrian, Leslie, yay. When I teach it as a return of spirit to the body. So here's where that idea came from, and I hope that this sort of dovetails into your question, Ritza. So when I used to do years and years ago, when I was trying to figure out what the heck I knew and where it was coming from and how to apply knowledge, I did psychic readings, and I did psychic readings professionally for 17 years. So and it was so weird how that all started, but it was my mother who said, "Oh, you could do that." And I was like, "Do what?" She said, "You could give a reading. My friend just got a reading from a psychic. You could do that." Okay, so this was 1969. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And I said, "Well, how would I even go about doing that?" She said, "Oh, just sit next to her and hold her hand and tell her the stuff that you know." 2.5 hours later, I kind of emerged and said, "Was that it?" My mother's friend's mouth was hanging open. And my mother was, "See, I told you could do it." so, so that was the beginning. And then for another 17 years, I continued to do readings. And I did them in San Diego, and I did them in San Francisco. I did them when I moved all over the Bay Area, and I kept doing readings. And what I would do is I would tune in to this golden ball that I saw above people's heads. And it was this bright light that was just kind of floating. And I thought of it as sitting at the tip of the unicorn horn, because most of the time it was sort of out about here. And this golden ball would be sitting there. When I watched the Olympics on TV, a couple of years later, do you remember the beginning when the Kenyan runners were starting? And the Kenyans just started to sweep all of the running events, and they just were like amazing, right? And they were so fast. And I remember watching the Olympics and watching this golden ball descend as they were in the docks ready to go in those, what are they, the stocks or whatever they're called. And the light came down, and it would come into their pelvises, come all the way down. And I watched that happen. And these were the guys that won. So then I had an opportunity, because I remembered watching, I don't even remember, it might have been the Ed Sullivan Show or something. Well, Nureyev danced on the Ed Sullivan Show once, or some TV show, and I watched it. Same thing. He had this golden ball, and as he walked out, I could see the golden ball descend, and it came into his pelvis. So I thought, well, what is this that's happening? Why? I tune into that, and it somehow or another gives me information, and then it descends into these people who are physically strong. Then I saw a video of Yuya Shiba, who was the founder of Aikido. And there's one or two videos of Yuya Shiba working out, and he's this little Japanese guy. I mean, he was like maybe 5'1" or something, little tiny guy, really delicate looking, and he's throwing like a 6'4", 275-pound Marine across the room. This guy's flying through the air. And Yuya Shiba had this huge ball of light in his pelvis. And I thought, okay, how do we get that light into people? And so that began my really 25-year study of how to do that. And what I found is when I helped people embody that light, that their lives were different. When I embodied that light, I started to get well from chronic fatigue syndrome, which I had for 7 years. I was in bed. I was really, really sick. I had a fever of 104 for 6 weeks at one time. I was really sick. And so I embodied the ball of light, and boom, I started to heal. So there was this magic that occurred. Not only did it have information, but it also had this profound awareness. So I'm coming back to your question, Ritza. I did not forget it. So what I see as different with sacred anatomy, energy medicine, and other techniques is that it's a full body experience, because we ground our presence into our head, our throat, our heart, our solar plexus, our pelvis, into our arms, into our legs, into our feet and our hands. And we take ownership of that presence. So that means the golden light enters completely and it comes into your whole body. So you're not just experiencing this ball of light in your gut. You're experiencing the light expanding all the way through your whole body. And then I lead you through the second step of the edge, which is, anchoring your tail, which is essentially a grounding cord. But instead of grounding into the earth, we ground more completely into the sacred anatomy. And so guess what happens? That ball of light expands. It starts to go into way down into the grounding cord, and it starts to take ownership of the structure. And then the third step is an awakening of the electromagnetic field. And so as we become aware of the electromagnetic field, that golden light expands into the electromagnetic field, which is a different kind of energy, but that subtle energy, light, can go there. So it does. So then we become more effective and efficient in our lives. Then the next step is going to the edge. And so as we go to the edge, guess what happens to the presence, the golden light? So we use the words presence, spirit, essence, sort of interchangeably, because it's the best descriptive I've got in the English language. So as we move through the edge practice, we embody our presence, our essence, our spirit, and we take ownership of not just the physicality in the pelvic area, but the whole structure. The edge takes us all the way out to the whole structure. And then finally, the monkey mind is the last step, the fifth step. And so when we pull the monkey mind out, give the monkey mind the job of holding intention, what we're doing is we're eliminating the self-defeating negativity that keeps our spirit from staying embodied. So the goal is not just to do embodied presence once a day, but to be constantly in the presence, the embodiment of presence, to be constantly there. So that when we're working, we're present. When we're doing great work like what Regina's been doing, or what my friend Caroline does in, healings, we're present. We're completely present. So being present with whatever's going on, whether it's, your candidate lost, your candidate won, who cares? It's you're present with what's going on. And if you can be present, you can bring your soul's power into the world. So I think that there's a difference between thinking of yourself as a physicality only and as a little maybe electromagnetic field around you. People call it the aura. And that's kind of what people who do yoga, martial arts, etc., that's kind of what they're thinking of. But the sacred anatomy adds this other dimensional reality, which is much, much larger. And the sacred anatomy philosophy and the teachings say, you matter. You make a difference. Every time you're present, you're shifting the frequency of whatever you're around. So if we're ever going to raise the vibrational frequency of the human species, we got to be present with it. So if you decided to check out, you're not helping. You got to stay present. Ridza, did I kind of answer your question?
Quite clearly, I would say so. Thank you very much.
Okay. Awesome. All right. See, there's 2 more messages. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Ruth is telling her she's eating. All right. All right. Nazi. Yay, Nazi. Here she goes. Nazi's always got good ones. 12 radiant points are a tool of the 4 aspects. by stimulating karmic lessons and memory. How does intention work into peeling away lack of focus and unconscious intention to let us grow? Oh man, what a great question. I have to maybe have a sip of my coffee. Okay. So the 12 radiant points are 12 places that are in the template. So the template is, Cheryl, why don't you show us a picture of the 12 radiant points in the template? So the template is the nervous system of the sacred anatomy. And if you look here at this composite of the template, you see those purple blobs. Those are what I call the 12 radiant points. And there's only 10 of them visible because 2 of them are behind the little guy. What they do, what the 12 radiant points do, is they release karmic issues. They have this ability to tune into the place in the structure that holds karmic debt, karmic issues, and that is the etheric layer. So if you look at the layers underneath this web, this template web, right there, the orange, you can see Cheryl's pointing to it. That's the etheric layer. And the etheric layer is the place where it's kind of like our mini Akashic records. It holds the entirety of the soul's experience, like every moment of every day of your soul's experience. So that's contained there. And the 12 radiant points are located throughout the template, but they tune into and access the etheric, and the 12 radiant points bring forward particular kinds of lessons, memory, issues that need to be resolved. Intention, how does intention work into peeling lack of focus and unconscious intention to let us grow? Okay. That's a kind of complicated question. So let's address it in sort of chunks here. How does intention work? That alone we could do, a 12-hour lecture on. I am absolutely clear. We could talk about that forever. But intention works because ultimately, when you're spiritually engaged, which people are when they embody presence, okay? When you're spiritually engaged, your intention is held really not by just one small part of your structure, but it's held in the greater mind. The greater mind is, guess what? Guess which part of the anatomy it's in. The greater mind is in the template. So the greater mind is in the template, and when intention for example, your soul's purpose or your life purpose, when your intention is clear, your template is holding that awareness in the greater mind. So it's larger than your egoic self. It's bigger than that. So if it's your intention to make $1 million, that's here. It's small. If it's your intention to be in control of the world, it's here. It's not a big intention. But if your intention is to shift the consciousness in a positive way, to hold the light for the people of the world, that's a big intention. And that's in the sacred anatomy. And it is powerful because what you have is the intention of the greater mind, which is the seat of your own particular genius. So when you get out of your head and your mind expands away from the ego and the sort of the need part of the grasping part of your body and your mind and your spirit and your heart, when it moves out of that into beneficent, positive, helpful, engaged living, then you're holding a larger intention. So how does it work? It works because we tune in when we hold true focus. We tune in to this higher intention. Now, each and every one of us have a soul's purpose. It's a simple thing. It's not a complicated thing. It's not an overwhelmingly large thing. It's not pages and pages of writing. Your soul's purpose is one of three things. It's either to bring love, give love, be love, if you're a Gamma. It's harmony, balance, beauty, and a high state of craftsmanship if you're a Beta. And if you're an Alpha, it is the vision, the high vision, the spiritual vision. So each one of those things are a substructure type. So that's part of the bones of light. So we've got the bones of light involved here. We've got the 12 radiant points, which are these access portals into types of karma. And we've got the layers in the etheric holding all of that information, holding all of that data. So you see, the entire structure works together to hold intention. When you lack focus, it's generally because you're caught in your electromagnetic field and you're stuck in some sort of egoic need. You're in the midst of, grasping. I gotta have it. I want it. That's lack of focus, right? And people think, oh, I'm really focused. I know exactly what I want. I'm sorry. This is not where real focus is. True focus is stepping outside of your personal needs and looking at how you can serve. Service is the ultimate goal here. And what are we in service of? We are in service of awakening. We're in service of lightening. We're in the service of, I've got a new class that I'm developing about holding the light, and it's for the new leaders, because believe me, we got new leaders coming, and they're all about 12. They're coming, and they're a noisy little group. Anyway, so there's this idea of like holding the lamp, holding the light, and we don't do that from our need place. And we also don't do that from desire. We do that as we grow into our own awakened awareness. So lack of focus and unconscious intention, that's actually just ego spewing. Now, here's something really important I have to say about egos. You gotta have a strong ego. You cannot function as a partner with Divine Source if your ego is milquetoast. You have to be able to stand in your power as a human. You have to be able to say, no, I'm going to put my own interests aside. No, I am going to serve the community. No, I am going to see that there's a need, as opposed to what can I get for me, mine, and us. So, okay. I think I answered your question, Nazi, right? Yeah, good. Okay, now the fabulous Regina. Here she is, wondering about specific protocols for early childhood autism. Regression at age 2, diagnosed at age 4, onset post-vaccinations, antibiotics, multiple surgeries. So this is a specific client who is 6, and there's no EPA activity, which means no entities, possessions, or astrals. Cleared merges and completed medbag protocols in session 1, and it's a new client. All right. I'm going to share something about working with autistic people. This is going to sound really nuts. Okay, so just get that seatbelt on. My experience of autistic kids is that they are recent embodied humans, that they are not necessarily Their souls may be old, but they may have never been human before. I believe that they are coming into this world from the fairy kingdom, and that a lot of little autistic kids, if you help them pop their wings out, they get happier. And the other thing is that this work, sacred anatomy, energy medicine, really helps autistic kids become less intensely jazzed up. It kind of helps them calm down. But they're used to vibrating in a different frequency. So they're not quite human. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean that as this is their first lifetime in a human body. They are making the transition. So the people that you actually have to work with are the parents. You have to help the parents see the child as a manifestation of divine consciousness. You have to help the parents see the child as not broken, but as who they are intrinsically. And I believe, and I may be wrong about this, but I believe that these interventions that we do, surgeries, vaccinations, all these things we do to ourselves, if we attune them, we don't have these effects. However, if you've got somebody who's gone through these things without attunement, and there they are, you have to kind of go back and unpack all those medical interventions, and you have to attune everything and remove all the excess drugs. This is for those practitioners and med beggars who've learned how to do this. We have this procedure in sacred anatomy, energy medicine called attunement of signatures. And what it is you determine the drug signature and then you attune it. You attune the drug to the person as opposed to the person struggling to attune to the drug. It's a very different approach, and we found it to be very effective. It helps with chemotherapy, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have a kid who's had 50 different interventions, I'm exaggerating, probably 4 or 5, and you go back in and you unpack them and you kind of say to the mom, all right, I need a complete list of every med. Then you go back and you remove all of those signatures, you attune what's still being taken, and you get to a place where they're less distracted by all of that intervention. You begin to see some movement. The other thing is, and what I've found is when I work with autistic kids, I really work with the parents, because what I find is that the parents are so hypervigilant about the kid and so worried and feeling so guilty and freaked out that if you can dial the parents' level of agitation down, the kid calms down. And I think this is probably true for all kids. So there's this group of children right now that are coming in who are like, they're different. They're just really different. We were calling them indigo kids for a long time. I'm sorry, there's too many of them now. There are just so many of them. And what they are is little powerhouses, little amazing beings who are going to be able to adjust and work with the differences on our planet, the differences in the cosmos, because things are happening right now. Lots of things are happening right now. We are changing the playing field, you know? So the best thing you can do to get out ahead of it a little bit is get hip to sacred anatomy, energy medicine, and let it help you cope with the intensity that's coming. Because you think this was intense? You have not begun to see intense. So where we're going is wild. But that's why we need to get together as a community. That's why we need each other to hold hands and share the light, right? So if you forget that there's light everywhere, you can tune into us and the sacred anatomy angelic field that we hold. You can tune in and you can go, help! You know, I need a little help getting through whatever. And there you go. Things are dramatically changing. And in my lifetime, you know, and I'm in my 70s now. So in my lifetime, still, I'm expecting to live to be very old. So as I keep living in my lifetime, and yes, in Lori's lifetime, and a few other people were in the same age, Elizabeth's lifetime, and Regina's chomping on the bit, she coming up behind me here, and Leslie's lifetime, and Hosanna's lifetime, us older people, as we're seeing, you know, in the 60s, we started the revolution of consciousness. We started it by throwing our bras into burning bins and, you know, becoming hysterical in front of troops as we were protesting. We are the ones who are kind of like, we're going to age out, right? But we're going to see the big transitions in our lifetime, you know, and of course it's going to keep going. Yes, and I would include Pat. in this little community. All right. So I kind of forgot where I was. Did I answer your question? Did I do that? Early specific childhood. Yeah, and you do have to look at the EPA, Regina, but yeah, I think you're going to have to just keep plowing. One of the things I found was doing round robin clearing, going through all the structures, you know, all the systems, the 7 systems, and clearing each of the 7 systems for the family, not just the kid. So it's a family thing that occurs. So people who are chosen to hold autistic children are like holding a lightning rod. You know, they're holding a lightning rod, and that child has some gift to give. So walking away from the kid, some of them it's so dysfunctional, but you know, you just have to do the best you can with what you've got and help them become a little more functional. And if they can just sort of manage to calm down enough, they may not ever be verbal, but they can be in the world. And if you can take them into the world, into nature, this is where a lot of the safety needs to be. So nature, it's important for autistic kids to plant seeds, to hold the earth in their hands, to walk barefoot on the ground, to hug trees. So even if it lasts for 2 seconds, it's important for them to do those things. All right, so there's more questions coming in here. Chenson, did I answer your question well enough there, Regina? I just have to ask. Yeah, okay. Trenton says, please explain how gut issues are related to the template. Is it due to the microbiome or something greater? Thank you much in advance. Well, you're welcome in advance. Okay. Okay, so gut issues are multi-layered. If you have gut issues, you probably got something going on electromagnetically. So there's probably something going on in the physicality that is dysfunctional. You may have a vulnerability that's genetic. You may have other issues that have pushed you into a hyperallergic state where tons of foods are causing sensitivities and you're not absorbing things and your microbiome is dysfunctional. So gut issues need pre and probiotics. They need good assessment. You got to be careful about parasites because it's a problem if you've traveled into the third world. Even if you haven't, people who have traveled into the third world or have come from the third world and have cooked for you, you may have parasites. So it's really important to check parasites, to check your candida levels, to see if your yeast production's out of control. So all of those things are really physically addressed by excellent doctors and naturopaths. Okay, so there's that. subtle anatomy energy medicine teaches us that the electromagnetic field of the microbiome is actually, guess where? In the template. So that electromagnetic field of the microbiome is an interesting thing because it's not controlled by the electromagnetic energy of the human electromagnetic field. Okay, I have just gone way into the weeds here. So this may be a little weird for you to hear about if you're brand new to sacred anatomy energy medicine. I'm thinking it would be great to show a picture of the template again so we can just look at it. And I can just, and also, can you also put up a picture of the HEMF, honey? Thank you, Cheryl. I don't know what I'd do without her. So helpful. It's great. She organized all the graphics, and there's like 2 million. She's organized them. I don't even think they're on my computer in such good order. But anyway, so the microbiome electromagnetic field is outside of the HEMF, the human electromagnetic field. So they're different. They're different fields. And what I've seen, which is profoundly interesting, and I was just with someone who died, I watched her leave her body. And what I saw was as she was preparing to die, her electromagnetic field started to disintegrate and basically leave the physical body, and it lifted up above her physical body. This green thing is the electromagnetic field, and you can see these silver tethers that anchor it into the subtle anatomy. Those all pull away, those rip away, and the electromagnetic field leaves the subtle energy structure. Now let's look at a picture of the template. So it leaves, and then what's left behind is this template, this composite. But as the physical body starts to die, so this teaches us, is why I'm talking about death. The physical body starts to deteriorate immediately. I mean, sometimes people are deteriorating before they die, right? But it deteriorates and it immediately starts to decompose. So the physical body is returning to dust, and it's releasing. The electromagnetic field is no longer possible because it's based on the firing of the brain and the heart and the cells. So as they're deteriorating, the electromagnetic field has no more a relationship to the sacred anatomy. It pulls away. There are a couple of things that remain. So the microbiome electromagnetic field, we don't have a drawing of yet, but it remains for at least a while in the sacred anatomy, and it kind of sits. Could you go back to that previous illustration, sweetie? Thank you. It kind of sits in the mental layer part. It's the yellow part of the of the layers, and it goes into the cognitive, which is turquoise. So it's right there. That's where your micro biome electromagnetic field is. So when the HEMF, go back to the HEMF picture, when that tears away, really working Cheryl here. When it tears away, you can see the energy of the blue and a little bit of the yellow there. You see that? It's not really covered by the HEMF. So that's where our microbiome is sitting. And it's sitting in the template. The HEMF does not sit in the template. It overlays the layers. So as it pulls away, the layers are affected and it kind of releases, it goes out. And what we're left with, the human microbiome as it sits there between the mental and the cognitive layer, it begins to kind of condense. So it actually stays as a kind of remnant in the structure after death. All right. How do I know this? It's like, all right, you. How do you know this stuff? Well, I know because I've watched a couple people die now in my life. I've watched more than a couple, actually. And consistently, when I see people who are really, really old and getting ready to die, or really, really sick and getting ready to die, the electromagnetic field has already started to dissipate, but the microbiome starts to glow. It's really interesting. So I'm not going to claim I know why about all of this stuff, because a lot of it is still so fascinatingly bizarre. Like, why would that happen if the microbiome, which is supposedly comprised of many, many, many different little critters, right? If you study the DNA of human beings, supposedly, and this is scientifically espoused, 20% of our DNA represents human DNA. 80% of our DNA represents the microbiome. We have so many little critters living in our structures, in our physical bodies, that we're like, the pilot whale or the pilot fish that attaches himself to the whale. We have all these little buddies that live within us. So this is really gut issues, If that microbiome is not healthy, we can see, if we have sight, we can see it dulling down. And when people start taking pro and prebiotics, it glows up. So far, that's what I know. But it's an area of study. Okay, geniuses. It's an area of study. It's a place where we need to learn and where we need to grow to understand how this electromagnetic field of all the other little critters who live with us can survive death. How do they do it? Are they somehow feeding on the electromagnetic field's dissipation? All right, now I'm going to ask you to show the light body. Okay, so here's a theory. So everything is a theory until it's, through much study, it becomes kind of an accepted idea or a philosophy. This is a philosophy, this stuff that we're studying. It's a philosophy. And there's a lot of room for error. So we don't ever pour concrete, right? So the light body is inside the physical body, and it is the result of excess photonic light. So each of the cells has little photons that are firing, and they create this light that's like banging around inside of our physical bodies. And there you go, you've got that. The light body is inside. And within the light body is an entire template of the physicality. So we have a light body brain, a light body lungs, a light body heart, a light body spleen, et cetera, et cetera. And we are learning how to work with this. This is also an area of study. So the thing I want to point out in this moment is that sacred anatomy energy medicine is alive. It is not a dead art. Okay, it's a living, breathing, expanding awareness, and we need more help. We meaning me and Cheryl and Bobby, the three of we need help. So the light body is this like really alive, awakened, buzzy thing within us, and guess what? It survives death. So we have a template. It doesn't look the same, but it becomes like a template in the template, which I originally called the placeholder way back when. And the placeholder is the light body in the template. And what it's doing is it's holding the place for the next incarnation. And it holds a lot of biological information. It holds, kidney disease and heart disease and all these diseases, but it also holds things like genetic strengths and potential. And that stuff is sort of imprinted as almost like a little cardboard cutout inside the light body remnant after death. So this gives us two things that survive the release of the electromagnetic field and the departure of it. When it just splits and it starts to disintegrate, the physical body starts to go, and what's remaining is the microbiome condensed and intensified, and the light body, which becomes paler and more of a template-like placeholder. So these, being able to cross over and come back, which is, I had two of these death experiences, right? When I say death experience, it's not near death. I actually died. Okay, and then we come back. When you come back in, there's an experience of regeneration. So the microbiome regenerates after a near death or a death experience, and so does the light body, and they may change dramatically. Okay, I feel like I really got off on that. I think that was Jensen's fault. I'm going to blame
Absolutely, I take all the blame, but thank you so
take
much.
all the blame.
I'll take it all. Thank you. So there's clearly something greater
Yes.
in this lifetime by nourishing the template and the light body, this capacity that we have that we're still discovering will nourish the gut, is what I'm hearing.
I'm thinking so. I'm thinking so. Because all of it's connected, and when you have a dysfunctional gut from a previous lifetime, which everybody does, by the way, especially, if you haven't incarnated for a couple hundred years, and you come back in, your gut's going to be a mess because everybody was just full of parasites and lots of different bugs, right? And so we come back in and we've got this sort of residual damage that we have to deal with. So start your little kids on the pre and probiotics as soon as possible, get them going. I think that's one way you can really help children is to do that. The other thing is sacred anatomy, energy medicine. I see Jung Wen says she just found me a day ago and ordered my first book. Her husband has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and immediately started chemo. He took multiple boosters of Vax 2 years ago. I'd like to learn how to assist him to heal. I cannot see aura color, but I can feel subtle energy. Here's what I'm going to suggest you do, Jingwen, because it takes years to become a sacred anatomy energy medicine practitioner. People are studying with me who are very capable and strong. Right now on this call, we have Cheryl who's a practitioner. We have who else? Lori is a practitioner. We've got, I'm looking there. Caroline studied the first year. Elizabeth Poole is a practitioner.
San Francisco Bay Area, who is close by?
Well, let's see. Cheryl is in Davis. There's a woman named Samantha who's in, go on my website and find the practitioner page. There's a bunch of them. Chensen's a practitioner, Regina's a practitioner, Kirsten's a practitioner, Eliza is in Europe, she's a practitioner. Diane's a practitioner. Oh, God, I can't get to everybody here. Terrible. Diane is local. Diane Peterson is a local practitioner. So you can contact her too. And I think she's on our website. So not everybody is on the website, but that's where I would suggest you go, as opposed to trying to do this yourself, because there's a lot of training that goes into being able to take the edge and all this stuff. Go ahead, read the book, become involved, and stay engaged, Jungwon. I'm sorry about your husband's diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer is rough. It's a tough cancer. Hi, Jean. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, Jean says, can you talk more about where we are going? How do we help ourselves and our community adapt? Do you mean moving into 4D or 5D? Okay. I got news for you. We're already in all the dimensions. We're not moving anywhere. It's already happening. Okay. But the where we're moving is we're moving to a more awakened consciousness. We're moving to a more alive place. So it is important to have a spiritual practice of some kind. I don't care what. One of the practices I share with people is just to sit in universal love and light. Call on a column of universal love and light. You all have access to it because it's a cosmic frequency. Call on universal love and light and sit in the column for 3 to 5 minutes a day. If you do that, you're beginning a spiritual practice that is a very high frequency practice. But you can do any kind of spiritual. You can pray, you can contemplate, you can do Vipassana, you can do Zen meditation. I don't care what you do. But you need to have space within you to be able to handle what's coming. So I would urge anyone who wants to become awake and aware of the subtle dimensions, which, by the way, are already here. There's nothing new under the sun here. We've been working with subtle dimensions for many, 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 many thousands of years. And it is a matter of the human species awakening to sort of the unused parts of consciousness and awareness and the brain and all of that. It's waking up, okay? How do I know this? Because I was normal at one time, and I had a little bit of a sight where I could sort of see little light colors around, which is what most clairvoyants see. They just see these little pretty little colors, and maybe they get images when they tune into something. That's sort of typical clairvoyant behavior. And I went from that to where I am now, which is like super clairvoyant, when I got thrown out of a car and banged my head really hard. And that changed something. It opened a door. And then there were a couple of other major things that happened. You'll have to wait for my book to read about it because I'm writing a new book and I'm telling a lot of stories in my book. It's going to be good, I think. Let's put it this way, I hope. So anyway, the thing that happened in my brain, so far there's no way they can tell from any brain scan. I've had probably close to 20 brain scans to see what the hell it is. There's nothing shows up in the brain scan. So clearly it's not electromagnetic. It has to do with something else. It has to do with a kind of opening into potential. So when I realized that, which I realized pretty early, I started doing things like, I want to demystify psychism. So that was my early efforts back in the 80s. Demystify psychism. So I started talking about how, everybody has access to psychic abilities. Everybody can be psychic. Everybody can tune in. Everybody can feel. Everybody can know. And it's not because I'm such a brilliant teacher. It's because I absolutely know this in a kind of internal awareness. And also because I experienced this. So I was normal, I was typical, and then I wasn't anymore. And I cannot turn off the lights that I see. So I have control over it, and then I can walk through it. I can find my way through it to see your faces, which is good. Because for about 4 years, I couldn't. So from about age 14 to 18, I was struggling. It drove me out of my mind. It drove me completely insane, trying to find my way through the morass. But once I did, and I got a little help from the divine, a lot of help from the divine, let's be honest. But when I got to the other side of it, I realized that knowingness counted, sensitivity and awareness counted, and intelligence in relationship to what is actually happening in your environment counted. And more than that, your connection to the cosmic spirituality of all things counted. So when we're working with ourselves and our community to help them adapt, the best thing you can do, spiritual practice, learn the edge practice and live from there, and become aware of the reality that whenever you walk into a room, you're impacting everyone in the room. When you're in a stadium, you're impacting everyone in the stadium. So the higher frequency vibration you're carrying, the more awakened you are, the more alive you are, the people around you benefit from this. Not just in health and vitality, but they benefit in conscious enlivenment, if you will. There's a kind of spark that happens when you shift from the ordinary and the mundane into sort of what we could think of as a super consciousness. So that's where we're going. And all this like fear of Wi-Fi and fear of tech and all that crazy stuff that's been sort of permeating New Agers, you know, get over yourself. I'm not going to say it doesn't impact us, but we have tools to deal with it in sacred anatomy, energy medicine. And it's just about tools. It's just about awakening to the tools. And the tools are all in the sacred anatomy. The sacred anatomy actually knows how to do these things. You can awaken spontaneously. It can happen, but it rarely does. So it's a really good idea if you begin studying and working on yourself. Okay, so Ruth K. Now, Elizabeth, you had your hand up. I don't know where you came in the, did you put a thing in the chat, Elizabeth?
Yes, and it was a really simple comment, and someone said it was that scientists consider the whole gut tube where the microbiome lies from the mouth, wherever it goes, as outside the body. So that's something else to think about as when the body disappears, is the microbiome not really in the body? Just a comment.
Okay, so I love that comment because it actually validates what I'm saying, which is the electromagnetic field of the microbiome isn't even in the electromagnetic field of the human being. They're two different things. So that's extremely cool. I just love when science validates us, which it's been doing for about 25 years, which is extremely cool. Cheryl's made a big study of this stuff. She'll probably write a book someday. I'm hoping. Go, Cheryl, go. All right. So Ruth K says, Desda, there are multiple microbiomes, mouth, brain, etc. Are they all outside, as is the gut microbiome? So the gut microbiome does exist in the gut. I mean, it's there. How else would we get candida? You know, it's there. So the electromagnetic field of the microbiome is outside. And what's interesting about the comment that Elizabeth just made is the question I would ask the scientists who are studying this is, really? And it'd be like, well, what part of the microbiome is outside of the physicality? So that's...
It's considered, it has to, the microbiome, the little buggies and everything have to cross a membrane to be in the body. So the whole thing is outside of the body. That's what their thinking is.
So when they say outside of the body, do you know where that they're thinking of it located? Are they just thinking?
Well, yeah, I mean, anatomically, it's just a hollow tube. From the mouth to the anus is just strictly a hollow tube. It's not part of the body. Things have to go into our stomach or anywhere else, things have to cross over a membrane. The membrane belongs to us, but the space inside the membrane is not considered to be part of us.
That's a really interesting idea.
It's a concept from embryology and how we develop.
Thank you. Elizabeth Poole, by the way, is a renowned, in my book, renowned worker with little kids. She does cranial sacral work and more with little tiny babies. And I really love her. She's a lovely, lovely. Caroline Tosh, I saw you waving your arms around. Go ahead. Speak up, Dr. Tosh. There you are.
I'm unmuted. I'm with Ruth. We're all now very into the idea that the microbiome, that the body, as it grows from an embryo into a childlike then adult form, that in fact it really is a series of tubes where the outside folds multiple times onto the inside, and that you can access this surface, which is a kind of like a seam between the inside and the outside, even when it's encased within we would call it the dermis, the skin. And that there can be interactions between this inner outside and the musculoskeletal and visceral inside as well.
So anatomy, physical anatomy, is expanding to include the idea that we can be influenced not just by genetics and biology, but in fact by these other creatures. Yes, I love that. That's beautiful. Caroline, thank you so much for sharing that. I just saw that it's after 11 o'clock. Is it okay if I keep going a little while yet? Are you guys with me? If you need to go, you need to go. I understand, but I just can't stop. I'm sorry. Bobby, I'm sorry. Cheryl, I'm sorry. I'm going to keep going. I've got a bug. Oh, so Caroline says here, Desda and friends, I'm very excited to tell you about some information I gained at a recent conference on the science of water in Lisbon. One of the speakers was a Russian physicist who has developed a device that can image photonic emissions like a kind of a super Carillion. Well, it's about time. I hope to be looking into that. And when we spoke, he told me the Russian osteopaths have been using this in investigations. So I'm off on a new thread and will share in some months when I find out more. Go, Caroline, go.
Because it's the first time I'd seen, I knew that the body, the living body, we know, emits photonic light. And this is the first time that someone has come up with something that will verify that and the changes that happen as the light changes. So there you go.
Yeah. So the next question is from Vanessa Compton Pearson. She says, not understanding how the light body relates to the sacred anatomy. Well, it's all one body. We have one body, period. End of discussion. So our one body holds it all, including the light body, which is this template inside of the person's structure, which is the sacred anatomy when they die. But when they're a living person, it's inside the physical body. And so the way it relates is it shares a little bit of how the light expands out. We're made up of two kinds of energies as far as I can tell. Sacred anatomy, energy medicine studies subtle energy, but it also studies electromagnetic energy. And we may even have a third energy that is this microbiome energy. We don't know. We don't know, and I'm not putting that in writing yet. But it's a thought, Photonic energy helps create this, and photons fire, right? But the photonic energy helps to create this light body. And I was calling it the photonic light body for a while. I'm not doing that anymore. Just feeling like it's not a good idea. But the light body is totally engaged with the sacred anatomy. And where are you, Vanessa? There you are. I see you. There you are. Vanessa, do you understand what I'm saying? That there's just one body and it's all connected?
Yes, thank you. That does explain it. I was just not quite understanding because you threw that in, and I'm like, oh, that's another thing.
Yes, I did. I threw it in. Haphazard, a bit haphazard. I'm sorry about that.
No, but it's something I'm totally exploring at the moment. So it's very helpful to hear what you've got to say.
Well, and we have a number of practitioners. Jen Zorich comes to mind. Jewel Scanlon comes to mind, who have studied a thing called biophoton. And biophoton healing is this wild machine that they use to influence the firing of the photons. So you can actually treat the photons and the firing. But here's, do we have, Cheryl, do we have access to those pictures of the blood cells? Do you have access to those? Okay. Well, I'll make sure you get them and we'll have access in the future. But I did this thing. Have you guys heard of dark field microscopes? Okay, so dark field microscopes, if you take a little bit of blood and you put it under the dark field microscope, you can look at the health of the cells. You look at, and it's a dark field, so it really shows the cells clearly. So there was this guy that I met through one of my practitioners who knew him, this woman, Karen Zimmerman, who's a great practitioner, lives in the Midwest. And Karen was friends with this guy who was traveling around with his giant microscope, and he would come to your house and he'd take some of your blood and he'd look at it, and he was a naturopath. So he was prescribing all these vitamins and minerals, and I think his whole thing was to sell lots of vitamins and minerals. So he would prove to you when he looked at the red blood cells if they were lighting up or not. So he came to my house because I was really dying to see this stuff. And I stuck my finger, took some blood, put it under the slide, and we looked at it, and oh my God, a lot of my cells were kind of like funky looking. They weren't lit up, and you can see if they're lit up or not. So he says, you're going to need, and he listed 27 different things I would need. And I said, wait a minute, can we do a second test? And he said, yeah. And I said, but first let me do this. So I bring in universal love and light, and I'm sitting there for about 2 minutes bringing in universal love and light. And then I said, now let's look at the slide again. So we didn't take new blood. We just looked at the slide. So we looked at the slide, and all the cells are lit up like crazy. They're all lit up. And I'm like, so I don't think I need those vitamins. I think I'm going to do just fine without $700 worth of vitamins. So universal love and light lit up the photons. So, okay, along comes Jen Zorich and Jewel and a couple of others who do biophoton thing. And I've actually spoken at the biophoton conference and got to know Tamara Fell's another one. And I started to teach the biophotoners, about the lights and the energy. And it turns out that when we bring in energies, the biophoton machine responds and it shows all these changes in the physical body. So now Jen is doing biophoton work, but she also does sacred anatomy energy medicine. So it kind of works together for her, which is what we see with people who do, cranial sacral, or, like Regina, who does phenomenal body work and other things. Regina's got a long list of things she does. But if you put sacred anatomy energy medicine in there, you've got access to all these cosmic energies that we bring in, and they shift the body. They shift the body. So anybody who does Reiki, how many of you studied Reiki? There's got to be at least 5 of you. Yeah, okay. So Reiki is a series of energies that you learn, and you do a little thing to distinguish the energies. But the truth of the matter is that cosmic energy is cosmic energy. And there are lots of different kinds of cosmic energy. I mean, I've mapped about maybe 1,000 by now. And if you can bring in Reiki, you can bring in any of the cosmic energies and direct it. The difference between people who study Reiki and people who study sacred anatomy energy medicine, or who come to sacred anatomy energy medicine, is that we do not bring these energies through our bodies, ever. Ever. We witness these energies coming in, and we simply direct them to the person who's to receive them. And then they take it into their body. So there's a lot of reasons why we do it differently. But the light body is profoundly affected. The photonic firing that creates the HEMF, the excess energy that creates your chi field, which is what the electromagnetic field is, extra chi, so you can lift the car off the baby, you know, like, or speak to 1 million people at a conference like Regina's done. It is important to know that that energy is yours, and that you don't want to share that with other people. You don't want to give that away necessarily. It's not really powerful for them to receive your energy. So when we bring Reiki through our bodies and we send it out our hand, we are shortening our lives, for one thing, because you're bringing in energy that you may not need into your body. I know this flies in the face of a lot of people's work, and I'm sorry if it upsets you. I know it can be upsetting.
Amen.
What? Somebody said something. I didn't quite catch it. But...
I said amen.
Oh, thank you, Hosanna. Yeah. And so all of the things that we do in our lives to interact with other people, all of those things are done from a place of goodwill, right? When I go to an acupuncturist who hasn't studied sacred anatomy, who doesn't know how to go to the edge, that acupuncturist is working with the best intentions. And so if he or she uses their electromagnetic field to place a needle, I simply don't accept their electromagnetic energy because I'm at my edge. So the needle will work because I'm going to allow it, but I'm not going to accept their energy. Because a lot of acupuncturists use their own chi, their own energy to place needles. I first became aware of this in the 70s and made quite a study of acupuncturists and how they worked. And I have lots of friends who do acupuncture, and I love acupuncture. But I don't love needles being placed with their chi because it wears them down. And it's their chi is for them, not for me. So it's not compatible necessarily. So doing acupuncture at the edge is pretty profound because it's like you've taken your ego, which is carried in your electromagnetic field. You've taken your egoic self out. You've taken your need to fix people out. You've taken any form of manipulation out, and you are simply tuning in to what's needed. And then you place the needle from the position of the edge. And that's really how all healing needs to be done. So my little, hidden agenda is to change the way we practice medicine. I want to see us practicing medicine as whole beings, not as these carved up specialists about an organ. Have you ever gone to a doctor who doesn't know anything about the subtle self? There's only one or two I've found who do. So it's a thing. We got to do some work with medical education. Okay, I'm going on a bit. let me see. Monica says, thank you, Desda. Ruth K says, bye all. She's going to an appointment. Okay. Can I keep you here another 10 minutes? Is that going to work for you guys? If you have to leave, you have to leave. I understand. Okay. Elizabeth, you've got your hand up. Thanks.
I want to say I used to be a workshop junkie, and I've picked up a lot of techniques, but I just realized the other day, after working with an elderly woman who supposedly is coming down with dementia, I'm not sure, that the way I got her to sign on are the principles that you teach to keep ourselves in a space of sacred witnessing and obtaining permission. Obtaining permission, it's not necessarily there, especially when a family member calls and says, go see my sick mother, stuff like that. But getting permission from the person some way or another and being in the space of sacred witnessing, I think is essential for every single technique. And you emphasize it so much, Desda. I hadn't really been so consciously aware of it until I started studying with you. And it cannot possibly be overvalued. Those are two amazing things.
Yeah. When it's like that person's sacred self logs on to the frequency you're working with when they give permission. And without that, well, you're just basically trying to maneuver them, manipulate them, fix them.
And that's the whole trick with working with newborns, because the newborn very much wants help from you, but you got to get the parents on board. Otherwise, the whole thing doesn't work. And if you don't have the full permission of the parents, there's only so much you can do. That's what I'm
That's right.
So.
That's right. It's like when I work with people who have like stage 4 cancer or stage 15 cancer, as I sometimes refer to it. What happens is they need to give permission to really open up. So for every little thing, I ask permission, like, may I have permission to tune into you? May I have permission to explore why you have cancer? May I have permission to work with your blended energy system? May I have permission to do this procedure, to do this thing? So asking permission down the line with somebody who's really in a pathology, dramatic physical pathology, allows you access to like little portals. Each permission kind of opens a little portal, and you go in and you go in and you go in. So just asking permission at the beginning of the session certainly can give you access, but it may not give you access into the profound trauma that is at the root of whatever pathology you're dealing with. And that can also work for like genetic healing and lineage karma. So let's say somebody has, a lineage piece that is blocking their ability to be functional in the world. So if you get permission to look at that with them, they also have to take ownership of who they are in that lineage and how their support of their own healing will heal back and forward on the lineage. So there's all these ways that permission, like I said, opens little doors. And so if you do any kind of physical healing, which a number of you do, start doing that. Start asking, may I have permission to, not like for Patty places needles, so not for each needle, but may I have permission to really address your gallbladder meridian? Just see what happens. Do an experiment. See if the treatment is more effective if the client consciously logs on. So I worked with a fairly famous acupuncturist, a guy named Ephraim Korngold was my acupuncturist, and he wrote a book here. called Between Heaven and Earth. And Ephraim wrote a book that was very interesting. He's now a Chinese doctor, but at the time that he wrote this, he was a Worley trained acupuncturist, so he dealt with 5 elements theory. So he wrote a book that took psychological principles, and his father was a really renowned psychologist. So he had grown up in the milieu of psychotherapeutic discovery and the early humanist psychology movement. And he took the information that he had about psychology and applied it to the 5 elements. And I was one of his patients while he was researching. So in this book is what's called the wood type. That's me. I am the wood type that he writes about. So the wood type is the person that goes full speed until they crash into the wall. And when they crash into the wall, they collapse to the ground. And that's kind of me. I go full on and then I'm on the floor. So anyway, so I've had to learn how to mitigate that. But when I worked with Ephraim, one of the things that I could do as a sensitive was he would place like a gallbladder needle and I would feel it. I would feel the energy moving in my body. And I could describe the exact route that it took as it moved. Well, I feel that in my big toe now. And now it's in my, kidneys. I feel it. Anyway, so it would move around the body. And so every single meridian. So he became, by working on me, he learned that there were people that could feel this energy flow through the body. It also instructed me. And so one of the things that I began to do was as I began to map the sacred anatomy, was I began to realize that the meridians went off the body. And that the meridians actually are affected by the sacred anatomy. And there's some acupuncturists. I worked with a guy who was a Japanese trained gold needle guy. And I talked to him about this, and they had some knowledge of this, and there was some way that they were working with it. So acupuncture has been very influential. And then I want to thank Ephraim and Harriet. Ephraim and Harriet is his wife, Harriet Beinfeld. The two of them wrote a beautiful quote from my book, and it's on the back of my book. So my book has a quote from Ephraim and Harriet right there. Yeah. This revelatory work maps mystery, skillfully giving shape through word and image. Desda unpeels the known to bear the invisible bones at our core, enabling us to powerfully peer into the elusive territory of our subtle anatomy. Simply by sitting with this book, we are transported into the realm of inner science with deepened awareness as the fruit of our journey. What an accomplishment. So that's Ephraim and Harriet's quote from me. So we cross-pollinate, don't we? We influence each other. And all disciplines are valuable. Everything you've learned, if you're a junkie of workshops, good on you, Learn more and more and more and more, and watch how that stuff works together. And watch how the information of the sacred anatomy influences every single discipline. There's no discipline I've discovered that doesn't benefit from knowledge of the sacred anatomy. So I've got here, thank you, Christine. Christine Odell says she's living it. And thank you, appreciate it. And Zheng Wen says, Desda, your golden blanket on the back of your chair is appealing to me. Where may I order it? Honey, I don't know where you can get it. It's I love this thing. Years ago, I found a warehouse in Petaluma near where I live that sold Indian and Tibetan goodies. It's from India. It has Hanuman. What?
I work at that workshop. That's Nandi Import. My friend owns it. Ganga's owned it for 50 years. Those come in blue, by the way.
Can you put Can you put that information, like how
Yeah.
to reach it? God,
Yes,
Hosanna.
yeah, that's where I work. Okay.
And I haven't known where to get them for years. I think I got one once. Yeah, thank you, Hosanna. There you go, Jangwan. Just asking it, she'll be given. All right. And then Pat says, SAM has definitely changed the way I practice acupuncture. Well, alhamdulillah, as we say. That's wonderful. Regina says, it's been wonderful. Thank you, Des. Thanks, Cheryl and Bobby, for helping us come together. And now it's 11:30, so I've gone over a half an hour. I feel like I should let you guys go. But this was an extraordinary gathering. I really loved every minute of it. And we have some things to tell you about. So hang on 2 seconds and watch this, if Cheryl would put these up. Okay, it's my book. If you don't have it, get it. Let's go to the next slide. It's on Amazon. This is another one I wrote, Magical Beings of the Natural World. Get this, there's a great exercise in there that teaches you how to connect with fairies, devas, elves, nature spirits, and elementals. So I hope you will do that. And then if you're into dowsing, the dowsing rod that we make is only available from us, and it's machined at extremely high tolerances. It's extremely light. It's aluminum and titanium, and it gives you sort of a new dimension in sensitivity. And now this is our special holiday offering, 13 Chakras of Your Sacred Anatomy. It's one of our most popular courses, and it's now released for Anytime Learning in November. So it's kind of our Black Friday / Cyber Monday week offering, and you can find this at www.yoursacredanatomy.com. And it's special pricing. I think it's marked down ridiculously. So please go ahead and check it out. What's our next slide? Okay, this is for those people who are coming into level 3 practitioner training. Registration's open. It's on the website. Early bird pricing ends December 2nd. Class starts January 9th. So please get yourself registered. We have a level 3 prac training come up. Prerequisites, of course, are levels 1 and 2. So this is for those of you that have taken the courses up to that point. And then what else have we got? Okay. If you are registered in practitioner training, you will be eligible to attend, along with registered practitioners, Sacred Anatomy Wisdom teachings with me. It's the first time I'm teaching live in 5 years. It's just January 23rd through 26th. And it is next year, right in January. We're restricting it to practitioners only because the space is rather small, so it can only hold about 30 people. So sign up right away. The information has gone out, and it's also on our website, www.yoursacredanatomy.com. So if you come back to me for just a second. So one of the things that's important to know about the wisdom teachings is that I'm going to teach differently than I have taught. When I had practitioner apprentices, way back when I first started to teach, the way I taught was people would come into the room and I would see what their pathology was and I would treat them. And everybody would watch the treatment. And we inevitably would learn new anatomy, new procedures, new skills. So this class is going to be taught that way. And it is going to be an opportunity for people who already are steeped in the skills of sacred anatomy, energy medicine, to increase their skill set. But it will not only be for advanced practitioners, it will be pretty much for any practitioners. So if you're just beginning level 1, you can be there. And if you're all the way through level 4 and beyond, you can be there. Only new pieces will be introduced, and everyone who is in the room will benefit from one of the 3 fields that I hold. So I hold the Sacred Anatomy angels hold a big field, and within that are 3 different buckets. One is the teaching field, which is what I'm in now with you guys. The other is the healing field, which is what we go into when we're doing procedures and working and asking permission and connecting. The third is what's called the creative field, which is where some people in this right here today have been able to access that field. But I'm going to work in that field primarily and give people an opportunity to see sort of the magic of sacred anatomy, which is how I'm able to go from field to field to field to blend that information to be able to bring forward new anatomy, new pieces, and new things. And we're giving a lot of time. Like, I'm not scheduling stuff in the evenings, so it'll be like 9 to 5 kind of thing. And we'll have lunch on site. But then everybody is free to connect with each other in the evenings. So there'll be a lot of interconnection for the practitioner body. And there's a pretty good number of people. I've trained about 75 practitioners at this point. So the space is limited, as I said, and it'll be first come, first serve. So if you're signed up for prac training, you're allowed to come, but not if you're not signed up. You've got to be in the prac training to do it. So there we go. Woo! I'm so excited. So I've booked Open Sky Retreat Center in Sebastopol. And here's another thing. There are a few apartments, like not apartments, but like rooms in the site. There's 4 rooms. We already have one practitioner who's after one of the rooms because she heard about this. But there are still 3 rooms open. And so if you really want to come, this is an option for you to stay on site. Everybody else will have to stay in Airbnbs or whatever. And we'll release a list of participants so you can all cross-pollinate and coordinate and, rent places together or whatever. So unfortunately, I just can't afford to book a big retreat site and give them $30,000 to hold the space. I can't do that. So if you can do that, great. But I can't do that. And so I've got a little retreat site that's really nice. It's a little meditation center, and it's a beautiful place. And those of you who have been there know that it's very sweet. So I'm also going to Europe in March, and I'm going to be doing a live class there. Okay, I don't want to say goodbye, but I have to say goodbye. Can I tell you I just love doing this with you? Thank you for your participation. Thank you for having so much fun. This is so much fun. Isn't it fun? Oh, so this is the secret about sacred anatomy. If it's not fun, don't do it. Okay, I'll see you guys later. See you next time. We have sacred anatomy. We have a break in December, but we're coming back in January for this class. So don't forget to sign up in January, February, March. We'll see you soon. Take care. Goodbye, sweethearts. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Des.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Love you.
Grazie.
Yay.
Grazie.
Keep it up. Keep up the good work, you guys. Keep it up.